Problemista stars as director Julio Torres, who is also an SNL alumni. He has established himself as a surrealistic comic over the years, something that I didn't know could exist in this time and age. And Julio is also a surrealistic comic that is making a profit being a surrealistic comic in this time and age. Now, if that's not testament to his skill, I mean, I don't know what is. It's a bloody inspiration. It's what it is. I didn't know who he was before this film, but I'm really glad I do, because now I have a living example of somebody who's a surrealistic comic that is actually making money. I love having the kind of little, examples in my back pocket, so thank you, Julio. There is so much of him in this film, from the immigrant experience that he has, to his love of toys with his surrealistic approach. Even if the film's marketing looks very indie, but I actually think this film is very auteur on Julio's part, and I am looking forward to his next work. The fact that he's a very accomplished writer is seen from the screenplay. He weaves social commentary with his wild imagination and comedy flawlessly. I think the strength of this film lies in the simplicity. The simplicity is what has the foundation for all the other crazier elements to come in. While this film is design heavy, kind of like Poor Things, I actually like it better than Poor Things. And I think it's because it made me feel. The fact that he's no doubt an accomplished writer, accomplished comic, and these elements are all seen in the screenplay. He weaves social commentary with his wild imagination and comedy flawlessly. And the film's not perfect. It's design heavy, like Poor Things, but unlike Poor Things, it's nowhere near perfection. Like, this is not a film that you look at and go, it wows you in every freaking specter of it. But that's kind of what I like about it. I kind of like that it wasn't perfect. I like its simplicity. I like that it tried really hard. And honestly, I think why I like it so much is because I related very hard with the protagonist. We're both immigrants. We're both dreamers. And more importantly, we're both dreamers who picked very difficult dreams. He's an immigrant who wants to make toys. I'm an immigrant who wants to make films. Having those dreams, being an immigrant and not wanting to end up being like a lawyer or a doctor or like some sort of sensible job is like playing the immigrant experience on hard mode. And this is also addressed in a great speech that Tilda Swinton delivers, where she just goes, "Of course this is hard, but you knew this was hard. You picked this. You could have been a doctor or software engineer, but you didn't. You chose to design toys." And I was just like, oh my God, I have heard that speech before, except my version was, well, you could have been a lawyer, Ray. You're smart. You could be anything you want. But no, you wanted to enter this industry that's dominated by old white males, the exact opposite of who you are, and then you expect to succeed and not have to fight the odds against everything else. So, yeah. And then you cry about how they just keep moving the line, the odds aren't in your favor, when you knew this is the industry you were bloody entering. But I just want to make films. That's why it's so hard. Sorry, that was clearly a sauce word for me. The gist of the film is that Julio's character, Alejandro, is trying to get a visa by working for Tilda Swinton's character, Elizabeth. Very simple premise, but interwoven with so much more. The social commentary thread is told throughout the story in terms of Alejandro's struggle to stay in the States legally when he loses his job and therefore no longer have a visa. It's very easy for you to be turned off by what seems like a one-note performance on the part of Tilda Swinton's character, Elizabeth, but I don't think that would have been a fair statement. Let's go back to the core of everything, the story. Present-day Elizabeth borders on hysterical and is the walking embodiment of 0 to 100. She's obnoxious, she's rude, and you only really learn of her softer side via flashbacks. When in private, when with the man she loves, her hysteria is then seen as passion. The obnoxious part of her is then dampened, and we start to see how the character communicates and shows concern. To an outsider, like a random barista waiter, she seems absolutely crazy and hysterical. But the ones who love her, like Alejandro does, eventually. They're able to read between the lines and understand that she genuinely cares. It's just in her own angry Hydra manner. For the people she loves, they are actually so lucky. Alejandro does end up loving her in a not romantic way, very person-to-person platonic way. He doesn't see a rude woman, which is how probably everybody else in the film views Elizabeth. He sees someone who needs help. And through his eyes, we sympathize with Elizabeth a lot more. She becomes almost likable, or rather, more quirky than obnoxious. And I felt like I learned a lot seeing like how these two characters were written and through their interactions, how they supported each other. As for Elizabeth, I think we can all relate to loving someone so much it kind of makes you stupid in more ways than one. Mostly in the traditional sense, but also in the I love you so stupid much, I would do anything for you, including continuing to be stupid if it means I could love you. Haven't we all be guilty of that? Tilda's Elizabeth doesn't care if you think she's annoying. She knows you think she's annoying. She knows she's being rude, and she doesn't care if you think she's annoying or stuck up or downright unbearable, because what she's doing, what she's motivated by, is love. And to her, that's justifies everything. And you can argue that because she is so loved, that makes her brave. Like, you could say that love makes her brave, but I kind of disagree. I think that she relied on Bobby's love to convince herself that she's worthy of love. Doesn't that sound familiar? Even if that love comes at a high cost. Doesn't that sound familiar? I think she relies on Bobby's love to convince herself that she is worthy of love. And even if that love comes at a very high cost for her, be it time, humiliation, money, loss of self-respect. Yeah, haven't we all heard that before? The cost being humiliation, time, literally cost, because she pours in all this money into Bobby's egg painting career, and also to freeze him so they can both be together in the future when they figure out how to unfreeze people after death. So when you think of it that way, like the lengths that she goes to, despite the fact that this man probably doesn't love her that much, like like the love versus the cost of it, it's just doesn't add up. You kind of almost pity her, or go like, yeah, I relate, been there, definitely have poured too much into someone that doesn't deserve it, and therefore you can't really hate her for that. I usually discuss the technical aspects of the film, and I do usually start with cinematography, but for this film, frankly, I don't remember anything particularly outstanding about the cinematography. That is not to say that it sucked, that is to say that it was just simple, and frankly, I think it needed to be, because the film had a lot of other larger-than-life elements that require a certain level of suspension of disbelief. If the story, if the cinematography itself was also really fancy or far-fetched, I think it would have been a little too much. And also, it's an indie film. Maybe they didn't have the budget. The design of the film is what really shines, be it costumes or props or the whimsical sets that you see in Julio's imagination. I would have really loved to have just worked on those sets as art department. I would have been happy just painting like one silly little tree or something. But yeah, really fun movie to watch just visually, and they weave in the reality and imagination part like really well. Like, there isn't like at no point where you're just like, oh, this sticks out from the rest of the movie. Another technical aspect of note is the sound design. When sound design is done well, as an audience member, you usually don't notice it because it's done that well. You are so preoccupied with the emotion that the sound design has generated that you're not noticing that it's doing that to you. In this film, little touches of sound design here and there are really what heightens the emotions in the scene and keeps it grounded in the reality, which is what we're feeling in the moment as an audience. As a filmmaker, I've always been of the camp that sound is 51% of film, and that was like such a great reminder / example of how like sometimes it's just about the little touches. Them using sound design to kind of ground you in your emotions also makes it easier for you to immerse yourself in the surrealistic elements of the film, in my humble opinion. supports it and makes you feel like, yeah, I'm really there fighting, like imaginary creatures with Alejandro, or I am really racing against the clock to finish this visa application for Alejandro. Like, you feel that anxiety along with him. And I don't think that happens very often.